I wanted to let everybody know, under new business, item 2 has been pulled for this evening. We will put that back on the agenda in the August agenda. If there's no objection, we'll just go ahead and put that down as the, we'll put it down for our first meeting in August. We have the approval of the minutes coming up. Need a motion.
So moved. Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a proper second. Also, there's two, just to let everybody, to remind everybody, there are 2 sets of minutes, one for the May 25th, 2021, and also June 7th. So when you're moving forward, when we did move with that, that was for the both minutes. All right, was everybody ready? Had sufficient time to read them and ready to vote? There's been a proper motion, proper second on movement. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, it passes unanimously from the committee for approval under that. Item 2 has been pulled. Resolution 2021-40, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement to host the TSSA middle school state softball and baseball tournaments. That is. And you want to tell us a little bit about that? Or?
I can. We hosted the tournament this year for the first time. They came back to us wanting a 2-year contract. It's the exact same contract we had this year with them, with the exception of they are going to provide athletic trainer. The Rotary Club agreed to help with parking again.
Right.
2 high school programs. Work school board, public address announcement. TSSA makes a donation back to the Rotary and the 2 high school programs for them doing that. And I have I'll pass these around. Highlighted in this updated economic impact. Highlighted in blue is the numbers for this year for this tournament. So the far right column where it says local tax impact, that would be what we would estimate is the actual direct local tax in terms of restaurants and gas and things like that. That would not reflect hotel tax. The 16 teams are all, with the exception of Murfreesboro, from outside of our area, have spent a night hotel.
That's a nice little. That's a nice small little lick for 2 days. 2 days work. It's good. Now, and that's in.
It'll be May of 2022. The difference this year, I think, and the reason why Mr. Bradley wanted us to do legislation to authorize the mayor to sign was right, because it covers a 2-year agreement.
Oh, okay.
Instead of just 1.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, yes, sir. Go ahead. Yes, Mayor.
Did the last one have 2 agreements?
No, this was just the 1 year.
Okay, sorry about that.
We did one for cross country that was 2 years.
There we go. Okay.
So in determining the financial impact, you've got economic impact factors, spectator multipliers. Are these common formulas used that were developed by what, TSSA?
No, this was developed by the National Sports Council. These multipliers and figures came from.
And so what does it mean, the total economic impact of almost $500,000? Explain to me what's included in the economic impact.
That would be basically all spending for the entire event for all people, is what you're estimating. So if you look at the sheet in the column that says economic impact factor, $624.
Yes.
What they're basically saying is for every participant over the course of that event, we're going to spend that amount average. So this is very generalized, the way these things are, because you've got in this case, a 2-day event that's using the same spending dollar that an event we just had here for a week. We know a week event, they're spending more than $624. So it averages out, and it's very hard to put a black and white dollar figure on anything economic impact. This is the best that I've seen. Rod Kirk is currently trying to, I think, see what we can maybe do to simplify this a little, make it easier to read for you guys. But this has been in place for quite a while.
So were the motels, how did it impact the local motels during this tournament this past year?
All right, we were all booked. The TWSAA gives these teams our Hendersonville hotels as the official hotels. So all the room blocks that we have are taken up by this.
So all the hotels. Okay. And so the last number, I guess, is the net local tax impact. This is what?
What we would estimate.
From sales tax, from hotel motel
Not
tax.
hotel, this would be sales tax.
So is it about, as far as the local tax, I know it's not economic impact, as far as the tax, is it about a wash?
For what we pay them.
Is it typical that we pay an incentive for them to come? Is that routine, or is that a competitive thing?
It is competitive at times, but cross country, they actually pay us. We didn't have to bid cross country. This was a bid that we had to submit. For example, we submitted a bid on bowling and lost it to Smyrna, who offered them more money than we did.
So do we get to see the other municipalities that bid on this tournament?
We can. We didn't have to bid it this year. We bid on it the first year, if I can get that. This year, after we did it and did such a good job, they just offered us the contract.
I guess I think if I were in your shoes, I would want to see it to see what did we overbid. I mean, was the closest bid $5,000?
Right.
So it might be good just for staff analysis to look at that, to see what the competitive bids were. So how much is the tournament actually going to cost the city?
The contract calls for us to donate 10,000.
Are there other, like, I think I read in there, a hospitality suite or,
Sumner County Tourism takes care of the hospital.
so really just the 10,000 plus staff. I guess we have overtime
Which is good.
that we have. And does the police department work that as well?
Police force,
And
security, and fire is there with the UT.
That's all.
All right. Any other questions or comments? on
I
it?
do, Director, did you say National Sports Council?
Nashville.
Nashville, okay. That's what I thought. I wanted to make sure. And I have one more. You have 16 teams. Do you anticipate increasing that number next year?
No, that'll be a set, the TWSAA, unless they change how many teams they allow. That's not something that can grow. They go through sectionals and sub-state to get to the state.
Okay, and so is this a regional tournament?
State tournament.
It's a state tournament, so we're getting players from all across the
We
state.
had as far away as Collierville and all the way to Johnson City.
Okay, perfect. All right, I like the sounds of it.
So was there, you don't know if there was competition by municipals that had turf fields? Because evidently that wasn't a big factor. The money was probably more.
The big
about
factor was us having the turf baseball field. That was a huge factor.
they'll use it.
This past year, they played one day, they played remote games, and they used Friendship Christian because they had a turf baseball.
Is that
But
allowed?
this coming year, they're going to play every game at Friendship Christian. Start earlier in the day. Play them all.
It's real good.
So that wasn't, that's Lebanon, correct?
Correct.
All right. Any Further discussion to Director Gilly? Hearing none. Robert, did you have anything to say anything on your? Anything about?
I did not, no.
All right.
Mr.
Yes, yes.
So help me out, Andy, in the column, you said 16 teams, but the column shows 18 teams. Am I misreading that? Number of teams.
Should be 16. Input error.
So we're expecting each player to bring an additional 2.7 people,
That's what people average out, yes, sir.
okay? Which means we're expecting, how many days of the tournament?
It'd be Friday, Saturday.
Friday, Saturday. So, and the economic impact is, so we expect essentially a family of 3 to spend $1,800 in those 2 days. Am I reading that correctly?
Well, if you take 16 times 2.7 times $624 a piece. Yes.
And that 624 comes from the National Sports Center.
Yes.
So we think that they're spending $500,000 in those 2 days in Hendersonville.
That's, I hope so. I mean, that's what we've been going with for a long time. And like I was saying before, you got some events on here that are 1 day using the same number as a week long. So you're estimating a soccer or a softball tournament here for a week, saying that that's the same dollar for 1 day. So it's very much an average. So it could be lower for this a little bit, but it's going to be way higher for some others.
Since TLSAA, you said they gave the teams the name of the hotels. So there must have been some sort of code that they gave them when they booked the hotel.
We help them block the room, yes.
Can you find out from those hotels how many people actually have
Sure.
stayed? That'd be helpful.
But the opening ceremonies is not gonna cost us anything more.
There is no opening ceremony.
Appreciate that. Lee.
You ready for a motion, Chair?
If there is, are there any other questions from any of the other? Okay, hearing none, I'm ready for a motion.
I second.
Okay, there's been a proper motion made for approval and it's proper second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Is everyone ready to vote? Does anyone need to vote? Motion repeated, hearing none. All in favor of resolution 2021-40 to be approved by this committee and on to the Board of Aldermen, and then have the mayor of Hendersonville sign off on this resolution, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, passes unanimously to forward on to, does it have to go to any other committee?
It's going to finance.
Finance, oh yeah, finance, okay. It goes to finance and then to the Board of Aldermen. All right. Just give me just a second.
And I'm sure it's in your budget.
Yes.
All right, our next one is the ordinance 2021-31, transferring $55,548.45 from the Drake Creek Dredging Project to the Memorial Park Fountain Renovation Project and accepting and appropriating a donation in the amount of $11,229 from the Rotary Club of Hendersonville. Well, first of all, before we do that, I'll need a motion. Okay, there's been a motion made for approval. Second. Second is made, now discussion, Mr. Gill.
The Drake Creek dredging project account is something that's very restricted. We rarely use it. Basically, the only thing we use it for is to repair the fountain that's in the water or do a couple things to the island. And the fountain, it's the big fountain itself is in some need of major renovations. So it was in the budget as a special project. This is kind of house cleaning to move money to actual fund where we can use the money. And accept a donation from the Rotary Club that they had leftover funds from the first responder memorial. I do have quotes at this time. They're not official by any means, but if you'd like to see them, Karen. The one to redo the stonework is 92,485 at this time. And to redo the lighting is 9,946, 9,946.
So 100,000.
Yes, sir.
So-
Yeah, this time, but it'll have to go out for bid, obviously. I will say this, that the quote that we had last year for just the stonework was 79,000, so it's gone up in the quickness.
So this, I guess, is just the down payment toward that project. It's 100,000.
Well, we'll figure out a way to maneuver, hopefully, within that, or maybe we don't do the lights this year. Maybe we do just the rock and come back. It's real close.
This fountain, for those that are not aware, was funded from the Rotary Club. Kevin Cotter was the president that year, and so the Rotary Club paid for the fountain, and so that's why they're really very interested in helping to restore it. That's the 11,220.
I'd be curious to know too, if we could bring back the brick program possibly. If there's room on the walkway to maybe do some more bricks, if we wanted to open that up. We can have to go on. I don't know if that's something we would do or if a partner with Rotary to do or.
Ron Ward, he can help you. He had the contact with the bricks, and we found at $100 a brick, it really wasn't that profitable. But maybe, but talk to him about it.
Okay.
That might be a good idea, to raise some additional money. So,
It was, it's been made and proper second, and we're just in discussion at this point. Mr. Peterson.
How old is the fountain?
20 years old.
20 plus.
Okay,
It's
so
got-
it just needs repairs.
It was the stone that's covering the outer facing is more of a stone that really to get wet and then cold and hot needed to probably be inside temperature controlled. And we really need a different kind of block on the outside than what we have. It's just going to continue to chip off and crack.
Well, I certainly appreciate the donation from the Rotary. That is extremely generous. But I would like to ask, do we not need the 55,000 in dredging any longer?
Since I've been here, honestly, I've used that account maybe twice a year for minimal amounts. When that started out, that was a project long ago, and it was like $300,000 project. These funds have been there since that project was completed, probably 20 years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's been a long time.
So
That was the city doing a
City's
project.
portion of the door.
but it's not so restricted that we couldn't use it for this purpose.
It's at the board's discretion. The project was completed, but there was ongoing maintenance, and the board chose they would be allowed to use that as they see fit.
How much is left in the dredging fund?
It's very close to 55,000. If that's not,
It's that amount.
It's that-
Okay,
Will we still keep funding that dredging project? Maybe it'll be or we just closing that line item down?
it would be closed down once this project was completed.
We have not, there hasn't been money added to that account either in years.
I don't think quite frankly, that dredging project, just me, I'm not sure 55,000 will do anything for that project. That's pretty. That would be very expensive if we do all that all over again. So, Any further discussion on that, on this motion?
No.
All right. We're on the project. Okay, hearing none, is everyone ready to vote? All right, does anyone need the ordinance repeated? Hearing none. We've had a motion for the proper second ordinance 2021-31 ordinance. All in favor of this ordinance signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, passes unanimously and moves on. I'm assuming to finance.
Yes, sir.
I really appreciate the staff.
Oh, I know.
The
I
staff
was gonna
balance
say,
is Very helpful.
it really is. It kind of reminds me when I look at it, that's what I've been doing. I'll go back and say, oh, yeah, you know, I'll look at these. And I do appreciate that. So,
That's 100% Jesse. I would like to take credit for it, but Jesse and the staff have sort of put that together.
It's
Think it's a
nice.
good format.
Much
Tell
better
them.
than me having to send
tell
it.
me thanks for doing this. So that is very helpful.
Good history.
Yes, it is. Moving right along, we've got ordinance. Our next ordinance is 2021.
Are we that boring or?
I don't know. I just kind of like got it on the way.
I got you, I got you.
Ordinance 2021-22, an ordinance appropriating or donating funds rather. All
So moved.
right, there's been a motion.
Second.
Okay, there's been a proper second discussion.
Will Morris logo be on the uniforms?
Yes, sir. They'll be on the fall base one,
Okay, that's what I thought.
summer and fall.
I appreciate Dr. Morris doing that.
And I would say this is just part of their package that they offer. They're in for close to 7,000-8,000 total in things that they give away and provide. Sponsor.
Very
This is
good.
just a cash portion.
All right, any other further discussion on this motion? Hearing none, is everyone ready to vote? Does anybody need the ordinance repeated? Ordinance 2021-30. All in favor of this ordinance signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passes unanimously on to, does it go to, does this? one-
Finance.
Finance. Once again goes to finance with our approval and on to the Board of Aldermen. The next one is resolution 20. Oh, there it is. 2021-39. This is a resolution authorizing the transfer of $258,219.11 from the flood insurance expense account and $40,000 from the Public Works Building Maintenance Fund to the inline hockey project account.
So moved.
Okay, second. There's been a proper motion, proper second discussion.
I would. The 258,000 is from the flood,
It's
correct?
from 2019 flood. Yes, sir.
That was our insurance check.
Well, it's part of it.
Okay.
It's what we have
And
left.
the 40,000, what exactly is that?
That is something Jesse had me add in. He talked with Marshall, and Marshall had budgeted for, and Sarah, you may speak to this, had put money in the Public Works maintenance budget for expenses that he expected to arise that were going to cover that whole area, not just, I'm talking about Mustang Lane all the way down to where the new fire hall is going as we completed this project. So it wasn't just specific, like there's been some electricity things, a couple things that came back on the water line that was a HUD requirement. That Marshall put money in there knowing that these things would come up that may or may not be specific to just the hockey project.
So this will.
But Jesse wanted to get all those monies into this one project account to simplify it for Robert as we process invoices and having change orders.
Okay, so is that 40,000 specifically for the inline hockey rinks?
It will be for this project, yes.
Okay,
But it's kind of, there's things going on outside of the park. That the invoices and change orders are coming in, and it's just complicated when you try to, on an invoice, mark 3 different accounts for finance. So this
Okay.
is simplifying that process.
that's all I have.
So, I guess this might be a good time since we're talking about inline. How do we stand on the projected cost of the inline? I know that there was some impaction, additional expenses. I also heard there were some additional expenses for rock when they dug the line. So do we have a feel yet, Andy or Sarah, of where we stand as far as what was budgeted and what it looks like it might?
As we stand right here to this moment, it's right on budget.
It is?
Yes, we had some money outside the flood insurance amount that you see on here that covers those couple of change orders that you're talking about. And there's some funds within that 40,000. So we're right on budget there. We have still, what we've done, if you go out there, there's a schedule to be in the project. That's the concrete sidewalk all around the whole front part of the park. What we've done at this point is told them to stop at the end of the parking lot with the sidewalk and keep in reserve any funds that would carry it all the way around in case we have other issues that come up over the next couple of weeks. I'm going off what the builders are telling us and Lowe's Design is that once we get out of the ground, it should be very standard procedure as far as cost goes.
So are they complete with the water line?
Should be done tomorrow. We had to stop today at 3 o'clock because of school registration. So we'll be complete tomorrow.
Now, this project, we didn't have a contingency budget, did we?
Well, we had these funds that Marshall had set aside, plus we had extra insurance money over and above the contract amount. And we knew that we could stop the sidewalk if necessary. So add all those together, talking about around 100,000 that we had if needed.
So,
Which has been, a third of that's been needed. So,
you're gonna have to go to finance right now. What time does finance start? 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock.
We're just about through with you.
They have
So,
just,
yeah, so Andy, let me tell you something that I've been thinking about. Several years ago, the board voted to start putting aside a fund for more parkland. Yeah, I think it was Alderman Sprouse's idea. After looking at the master plan, and we're way ahead of, I think, all of, maybe Johnson, except Johnson City, but of the peer group, we're way ahead as far as land that we have dedicated for park use
and green space.
and green space. So one of the things that I've been thinking about doing is moving or making a recommendation that we move, I think it's over 100,000 that we have.
I think you're right.
Is to move that in a capital projects reserve. So that if we need it, we can use it for the inline hockey. I just don't see with Beatty, with Durham, with all of this land that we have for parks that we're, and also Forest Park, that we're gonna need in the immediate future to purchase land for that. So I've been thinking about that, just to put everybody kind of notice to be thinking about. So if we do that, then if there is cost overruns at the inline, that can be our contingency to use that. So I would like, not now, because I know you've got to go, but sometime I would like your thoughts on that. Think strategically, long-term, and let me know what you think about that idea of moving it instead of a land reserve fund, moving it to a capital reserve fund, which I think Jesse had talked about in the budget to try to come up with that one day just to fund that. So that's, anyway, that's all.
Okay. No, that was a good idea, and I do remember that. I think that's a very good idea for our city as a whole. Something we need to look at. So, yeah, please do think about it.
I don't know if in the budget, if we did we do that this year? Says that 1% of last year's.
We did, sort of the last second, we realized that that wasn't necessary considering all the other money we're spending on green space support.
Thank you. Any other further?
I
discussion?
just, one quick question.
Yes, sir.
I know rugby is doing some fundraising as well as lacrosse for their lights.
Yes, sir.
What's the inline hockey group doing to help fund the new rinks?
They're putting together a sponsorship program that they got to bring to the Parks Board for approval. We talked about that last night at the Parks Board meeting.
Okay,
There are other things outside of the rinks that need to occur out there, such as a little locker room area. You know, right now, the way it is, you have kids changing clothes in the parking lot at Veterans Park.
It's old, that's just old school.
Yeah, it is old school for us, but probably not the best practice. Yes, they are definitely putting together a program for sponsorships. They'll have to bring it.
do they have a goal in mind?
I can't answer that. It's a good question. I
Okay.
can find that out.
You know, eventually we'll have to put more parking up there. And right now, I mean, they're lining up and down Mustang on both sides, and so eventually we're gonna have to, I think, expand the parking at that facility.
I think that's the plan for the piece of land in between where we are now and the horse farm. To include a major parking area.
So Andy, does the Parks Department maintain the right of way in front of Volunteer Park? The mow the grass and trim that, or who does that work?
We share that responsibility with Public Works because they have a piece of equipment we can't necessarily get in the ditch with.
I noticed that there's on the one side of it, pretty grown up. So, okay, that's all.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Yeah, you heard Andy talk about the sidewalk. To his credit, very much so, he was the one who said, guys, hold off on the sidewalk. That was supposed to be, that was supposed to be an extra. That was supposed to be something that could absorb the cost. And they had started working on the sidewalk. They were ready to finish the sidewalk. And Andy told them, you gotta stop the sidewalk.
It was something that they could do without, they were kind of on hold on the water line and they needed something to do, so they just started building the sidewalk.
Oh, my Lord.
But I think the way it is, we're okay. It's at the end of the parking lot, which is a good spot.
Yeah, which is probably where we would have wanted to go at least anyway.
I hope we can do it. I feel like this may be our last chance to do it. It was in the plans the first time with the soccer fields and got cut out, so hopefully we can get there.
I hope so too. All right, is there any further discussion on resolution 2021-39? Hearing none, is everyone ready to vote on the resolution 2020-39, which is a resolution authorizing the transfer of 258, 219, 11, some change from the flood insurance expense account and the 40 from the public works building maintenance fund for the inline hockey project account. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, it passes unanimously on to, finance and to the Board of Aldermen. And Andy, I guess you can run over to finance now and get all your stuff there.
Yes,
Good
sir.
luck tonight on there.
Appreciate y'all meeting today.
Just let them know.
Let us keep moving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's go to, we've got two more items, probably under other business, maybe three items under that as well. But trash collection update.
So overall, the trend for trash collection has been going down. The calls we've been receiving. Under Jesse's direction, we have assigned a staff member to go out on 2 locations where they've been missed 3 or more times in our system to kind of work to resolve the issue, to find out if it's a situation where their trash has not been placed in the appropriate location for collection, or if they don't have the appropriate containers to bring resolution. I think that we're seeing the benefit of that now. We have the receipt of this call.
That's always good. Yeah, our goal is to pick up 100% of everybody's trash in the city of Hendersonville. And we will continue to do that. That'll be our objective there in public works.
Question of trash. I've reviewed the contract with the trash collector. And there is a stipulation in there. that Pickup at apartments is not. This question before, have you had any communication with Durham? 181, I think it's 181 units, apartments that they're building on the site that they will be responsible for garbage.
I will have to get back to. I'll coordinate the planning, 'cause it was probably discussed through.
I'm concerned that if we make an exception for them, that we open the city up for discrimination claims by apartment complexes. So we've got to treat all apartments, large apartments, I understand duplexes, but I think we have to treat everyone similar, or we could be required to provide garbage service to every apartment. So if you could, maybe we can put that on the agenda.
Sure.
For follow-up.
Sure will, because that's a very, very important
Well,
situation.
we're seeing more and more of these. I mean, there's a development on New Shackle, I believe, that Homes for
There
Rent
is, there
is going to
is.
develop at
Right there.
over 100. And I look at that the same way. They're going to have to provide their own garbage service since it's apartments. They're homes. I don't know how you feel about that, Mayor, but
It comes down to, are the owners in it for residential purposes or commercial purposes? And if the owners own multiple of them in one location, obviously it's commercial purposes. And they need to be treated equally.
and they should be taxed as commercial as well.
Amen.
That is- that's it. One more thing I want to add is that Alana is the person that's doing such a great job in helping with some of the trash complaints. She's
Great.
getting out of the office and going and knocking on a lot of doors and people on posts, and it has worked.
Good. Well, she is an asset.
Yes.
I know sometimes, you know, she really truly is, and I commit, and I've worked with her for several years now. And she's an asset. She's one of those hidden assets in public works. We've got a lot of those sometimes that really don't like all the fame game, you know, and they just do their thing and they go home. And she's really one of those hidden jewels, and I always commend her on her work. She's a hard worker. So, but thank you for letting us know about that, because I didn't know she was going out in the field. All right, that's great news on the trash collection update. I will know that some of our friendly cities across Middle Tennessee have been having trouble with trash collection. I don't know if it was the mayor, but somebody sent me an email. I don't know. Did you all read that other email?
Yeah.
Was it mayor? The mayor, did you do that?
Recycling.
Right, and all that, and they're having problems within the city. And I'm going like, when I read that, I was going, yep, I know that real well.
Speaking of that, Jim Young is going to come speak to the board sometime in the near future. It's not so
Good.
much about trash collection as it's about financing trash collection.
True.
Because long-term, when it comes to what's going on with the Resource Authority, which we're still 2/7 a portion of, there needs to be some additional investment there to make sure that we have some viable options on there.
Well, that'd be good.
Jim can explain it better than I can.
Do you know about when that would be, Mayor? I mean, just right off the top of your head.
You don't want to do it August 10th.
Right. No, that wouldn't be a good.
And we don't have another meeting in August, so y'all want to do it the first meeting in September?
We can, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Just tell him,
Maybe I have him come here same night and then we go to the board meeting after that.
okay,
But it's, we've got to figure out, we have a pretty good idea how we finance it. City of Hendersonville is not going to. But the city of Hendersonville is still in the hook as 2/7 of interest in the whole entity.
right.
When it comes to the Resource Authority selling bonds, we will be on the hook for the $10 to $12 million just to get the sticker shock out of the way. But he needs to come and explain it.
Okay. Well, if anybody can do it, Jim
Yeah,
can do it. Mr. Jones is a good fellow. Known him for a while. And,
And he's one of our two representatives on the resource authority. I'm the other one, and he's been doing it, as you said, for a while.
Long time. All right, well, thank you for that update. We've got under, if there's no objection to any other one, trash collection, we'll go on to other business now. I know there was a couple of items that maybe that we wanted to discuss before our board meeting to be prepared for it. If there's any questions asked out of Public Works that we may have knowledge on that. Do you have any of the questions that we want? What were they exactly? All of them that got to you.
There was a request for an update for the traffic synchronization project. And then there was a request for an update on the HUD project when they would be.
All right, let's, all right, and then was there one more? I
Yes,
think there was
Alderman Peterson had asked about.
the Saunders bill, right? Okay, let's go ahead and take the ones that, let's start with the synchronization right quick, because that's probably one that is, fortunately, it's the easiest, but it's been most difficult
Yes.
for us for years now, but go ahead. with this
So
one.
we went through that process and identified the locations where we had discrepancies between the right of way and easements, where our equipment is located for that project. We had the survey completed, and we had the plans updated with the traffic control. Through that process, that was requested by TDOT. Through that process, we had a resubmittal, I guess it was mid-June, and I just submitted comments back to them last Friday. We had new locations that were shown out of right of way. Some of the parcel lines had changed since the plans were initially done in 2016, I believe it was. And so I've made some comments. I think we can work through most of those locations. I have asked them for the ones that they feel we cannot resolve through this process. I've asked them to facilitate a conversation on how to best move forward most expediently. So I'm waiting to hear back from them.
Excuse me, when do you think the lights will be synchronized?
On this lot and in the next.
Yes.
Yes.
That might be, that might be it. So that's an interesting question. So the project that's called the Traffic Synchronization Project, it's going to provide the infrastructure to synchronize them. It's going to provide the fiber and the radio connection to be able to have a centralized system here at the city. The retiming of the lights to be synchronized through a coordinated timing plan is actually part of the second CMAC project, which that project, the update is very similar. We haven't gone through, we haven't finished design yet, but they're waiting for the outcome of this project to use that information for the other project because it affects the second project. So the short answer to that question is, and like I said, we still have to go through design for the timing. So I would say within 2 years, if we can work through this process reasonably. As far as the first project, provide the infrastructure, I still anticipate being able to work through this within the next 6 months, hopefully. Staffing is an issue.
I'd say you're a cockeyed optimist.
An optimist.
So
Yes.
I've got some questions as you would expect.
Mhm.
So we hired a consultant to help us on the right of way,
Yes.
and the consultant's report was erroneous.
No, the locations, we had them survey the locations that were flagged initially
By the state.
by the state, and then there were, I think, 2 more that we had identified that we felt would be an issue, so we had them surveyed. And they came back, and through that process, there was only 1 location that we couldn't resolve through easements, existing easements, and that was North Anderson and Indian Lake Boulevard. And so we've already decided to cloud out that portion of the project, and just the city will fund that separately to move
And
forward.
the state was good with that.
They were, yes, they were agreeable to that way forward. And so we went back to the original design company And we contracted with them again to provide those surveyed updates in the plans. And in doing so, they pulled in Sumner County, the revised parcel data. And in doing so, some of those parcel lines had changed. And so specifically in one area along Main Street, previously the fiber was within right of way. But through the last 6 years, 5 years, that parcel line had changed. And now there's a portion of that fiber that's on private property.
How does a parcel line move?
Maybe they went through a project with TDOT and there was an alteration to the right of way line there. That's TDOT right of way, I'm not certain.
Yeah.
It just, doggone it, it just seems like to me that either we can't get it right or the state just doesn't want to do it. And they're gonna throw up as many roadblocks as they can, and we're never gonna get this done. I'm not frustrated at you, it's like I'm frustrated at the process, you know, and so the state has identified additional right of ways that are a problem.
No, I reviewed them thoroughly before I resubmitted. I didn't want to throw new red flags when we resubmitted to the state. So Marshall actually reviewed them before he left as well. And then I reviewed them after, and I made comments on Friday
To whom?
to the consultant who had updated the plans for us.
So we haven't submitted it to the state.
Correct. Yes, sir. I would like, when we submit to the state, I would like to be certain that there are no red flags, that when they review it, everything is either within our right of way or within an easement.
So now what is the consultant gonna do? They have your comments, they have the additional facilities that may not be in the right of way. So what is the consultants gonna do with that information?
Through my review, I identified a few locations where there were easements, so I've asked them to add those easements into the plans. The one location where the fiber is outside of right of way, I have asked for their opinion on a way forward, to where we may not have to go through the right of way process. And like I said, I sent that on Friday, so I anticipate a response from them. I would anticipate something by the end of this week, but possibly next week.
And then after we get their response, then what is our next step?
It may be that we would need to get to hire an acquisition consultant to go through the process of obtaining the right of way. I don't know if we would be able to satisfy TDOT from simply obtaining an easement, but that's what I'm waiting to.
So Sarah, again, I agree with Eddie, my frustration is not with you. I think we have to look back on the fact that 6 years ago, TDOT signed off on the plans that we sent them.
Yes.
They didn't notice and they didn't raise concerns about right of way. This is incredibly frustrating to me, and I feel like we're sort of snake bit here, and I'm sort of wondering, TDOT, who doesn't like us?
Right.
Knowing that's not the case. It's not that TDOT is trying to hold us up. TDOT is trying to do what they're supposed to be doing. Obviously, I wish they would have they had done that 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm willing to get on the phone with whoever I need to, whether it be a legislator or an administrator.
That may be something that we need, because we've done everything that I can actually think of in public works and as a city. And that may be to see if we can't speed this thing up is to really, maybe we need to sit down and talk, Mayor, and see. Because I know you know a lot of them down there and I do too. And
Sending myself a note right now.
all right, and maybe we can sit up and see what we can do. Because that may be our last straw on this, because God knows, I know y'all worked on it forever. And I know that you all have worked on it, not as long as we have yet, but you're gonna be getting there, because y'all just got on board with this. I know Jim's worked on it with us here as a board and also in this committee. And it's just like, I come out of this committee sometimes when we're discussing about this issue shell shocked, because I don't like the deer in the headlights, because I'm going like, Jesus, we've done everything that we know what we can do as a city. And I never thought that I will say this, and I think the mayor will agree with me as well. In our years, we've always had a really good relationship with TDOT. We've never not had one. And so that's why I don't think it's really them saying they don't want to do it, because they've always, whatever we've wanted, they've always either helped us expedite it or whatever. I mean, we've just had a really good relationship with a lot of those people. And so I don't know, but we got to really put our heads together on this and figure out what we're going to do.
One of the things politicians never want to try to override
Right.
are the opinions of engineers and the opinions of lawyers. If an engineer says you can't do that, I don't know what kind of lobbying has an effect on that. So I think we've got to get it right and get it submitted. And you know, this project's gonna cost what, estimated $1 million plus, $1 million plus. And the city has no share of that. The state is paid for all of that.
Unless there
So-
are overages with
so
the way material.
We're running up consultant costs in this. You know how much consultant cost we've run up on this project, just ballpark?
I don't know the total since its inception, but I know that, I think our cost to have the plans we've done was approximately.
But that's not inclusive. Right? That's just this last time. So we're gonna have to do it again.
Well, the comments that I have sent them will be under the contract price that we have now.
And you think we might have to pay to hire a, what you call it, acquisition consultant to negotiate with the property owner for right of way?
Yes, to go through TDOT's process to obtain right of way. To your comment that you don't override engineers and lawyers and they say you can't do it. We previously, I don't know if I remember, but we tried to use prescriptive easements, and John Bradley had provided a statement why we should be able to move forward with this project without obtaining right of way, going through this process. I don't know that lobbying would help, but we did try that.
It was a lawyer trying to override an engineer.
Yeah.
Which.
That's a major problem.
I mean-
There you go. That's a major problem.
I agree,
That's
the
like never
equipment's there,
success.
we've been maintaining it. I go to the cabinet on Anderson and Indian Lake Boulevard fairly regularly, but they would not accept that.
In that situation, it wasn't TDOT who turned us down, it was Federal Highway,
It wasn't.
Federal Highway Administration said, you know, this is initially federal money, so you have to follow our guidelines, prescriptive easements were not their guidelines.
So, Mayor, are you still though in favor of trying to jump through all the hoops for many years to come, it sounds like, to get state funding? Or are you getting to the point that this is so important for the traffic congestion in our city that it's an investment that we might have to make ourselves?
I'm getting closer to option B, and the reason I'm getting closer to option B is because we're already doing option A.20 in option, and so you heard Sarah talk about, there was one intersection we just took out of the project and we're gonna pay for ourselves. And there's the option to take the whole project out of the project and we do it ourselves. So that's, if we continue to have a hard time with easements, and if it's gonna cost us some money in easements and cost us money for consultants to please everybody, at some point, this cost is relatively stagnant and this cost goes up.
That's why I asked.
And the opportunity cost, I mean, we've got to consider it something. I'm not there yet.
Now, the $1 million price tag that TDOT is covering, is that today's figure or from 6 years ago?
3 years ago.
We put it out to bid, I think it was 2 years ago now. We put out to bid for the second time, and the bid came in approximately.
That's a good question.
But material prices certainly.
So, Sarah, if we paid for this ourselves, would all these issues go away?
This issue.
And that's a major hurt, apparently.
Well, Chairman, I would like to make this a standard report. Every public works committee is an update on light synchronization. So the only thing we can do is keep beating that drum. Sarah, I know that y'all are doing, but good God. Mayor, talk to Jesse. This is such a priority. I mean,
Is there a study that from the consultant or the engineer that the synchronization will help with traffic?
Yes, in order to qualify for that grant, the CMAQ grant, they have to prove fit to the environment, which part of that is lower commute times, less time stopped at lights.
I think that would also stop complaints, because that, just when we have garbage moving smoothly, the traffic complaints pick up. There seems to be an ebb and flow of complaints. And if it's not garbage, it's traffic. So I would certainly like to have these reports monthly, and maybe that's something that we're going to have to consider, is taking this project on ourselves as the city, to just make sure that we're not waiting 3 more years or 6. It's the can that's getting kicked down the road, and somebody's going to have to pick up that can.
and our consultant costs are just,
Yeah.
Valid point.
How much are we spending, how much is the city spending on the one signal at North Anderson and 30,000?
No, I don't think it will be that much, because it's really just connecting into what the rest of the project provides for the fiber. And it'll be a new controller. Not sure about that fiber connecting cost, but I wouldn't anticipate.
Okay. Good.
And the easement at Anderson and Indian Lake isn't getting any cheaper.
We've given up on that. We've given up on that option.
Okay.
We're just gonna handle it. That's not gonna be part of the project. The city's gonna link it to the project, but it won't be, we won't be expecting this, the TDOT to cover it.
Okay.
That's how, to your point, that's how extreme your point is.
more to come.
So what we'll do is we'll, hearing, there's not necessary on this as a motion. If there's no objection, we'll just go ahead and order it to be on the agenda, as a reoccurring report on the synchronization project. And it may be something that we might need, if it comes down to it, a special meeting where we can sit down as a committee and with the mayor's office and talk to each other quite candidly about where we gotta go with this. 'Cause I know you all are tired of it, I'm certain.
Yes. Is this something that I'm jumping way ahead, but next year, could this be funded from the hotel motel tax?
I do. I think it's a legitimate use of money.
Yeah, I do too. I agree with that. It's a good, that's a good thought.
Yep.
Yes.
All these tournaments bring in a lot more traffic.
Exactly.
So I think it would apply here. What do you think, Jim? Do you think it apply to?
Yeah.
I do too.
Sure would. I sure do.
All right, is there any other discussion on that? Let's go to one that's near and dear to all our hearts, is the HUD project. I know there's been some complaints raised within everybody's board, probably. It has been on Ward 6 and 1, at least, the section that a lot of people call me about, and I don't know about 2 or not. But if you could give us a little report on what's going on there, this would be great.
So I talked with Trace, and he has been coordinating with HUD. He stated that they anticipate wrapping up by the end of next week. And then they will have a little bit of cleanup, but the connections, the connecting streets should be cleaned up rid of those humps that I think is causing everyone a little bit of
Yeah,
heartburn.
a little heartburn, a little bit, just a little bit.
Um,
A little Zantac.
Right. So they ran into a little bit of an issue, I guess, with some of their materials and equipment also. So there was a little bit of delay, but you were right, they began first week of July.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll have it wrapped up.
Now, what is it being wrapped up? Buried,
Buried, yes, sir,
and they're gonna come back and fix the roads.
yes.
Are they gonna pave them or patch
They will, it's my understanding they'll provide a very good patch, which Trace will.
Well, he's good about not signing off on something that's not right. I'll tell you that much. I know I had an experience over in Ward 1 that he definitely took care of for me. So, but that's a good question to ask. When I talk to him, I may ask him that question.
them? Yeah, it'd be tough on them, make them do it good. If they're gonna patch, make it do a seamless patch.
For some of the other locations, they have been working with the city to provide even more than just a regular patch, so I think that we will end up with a good finish. We'll make sure.
Good news.
All right, any further discussion? Thank you for that. I've written it down. When I talk to him. Any other discussion on HUD? Mayor, do you have anything? No, all right. And now I think we've gotten everyone except one, and that is the issue on Saundersville Road. There was a question of what the cost would be on paving that area.
Saunders Ferry.
Yes, what did I say?
Something.
Yeah, oh, that's at Saundersville Road. I apologize,
That's okay.
Saunders Ferry. So,
Sanders.
well, it depends.
Oh, yeah.
It depends. You know, I've read the Mayor Clary's book and an issue on that thing. And one that we will be able to fight for years. But is it Sanders or Saunders?
Have you
What
seen
is
the t-shirts at Saunders Ferry Pizza? The back of the t-shirt says, "All that's missing is you."
it? Oh my God, that's good. I like that. All right, so let's go ahead with that, the discussion.
So the question that was posed to me was.
Right.
Would you like to?
I will, thank you.
Sure.
Talking about Saunders Ferry Road, and clearly the entire road needs to be improved, not just
Right.
paved. Widened with maybe a bike lane, certainly a sidewalk, turning lane, and it's 3.5 miles long. And I've kept hearing a figure of 40 million, and I don't know where that came from, but it had been, I think it's when you hear something enough over and over, it seems to be the truth. But I just don't know where that estimate came from. And I mentioned that at a planning committee meeting. And since then, I've had people ask me to present that estimate. Mr. Lufty, the developer on Saunders Ferry, one of my fellow committee members, and even my wife, she says I need to be able to back that up if I said it. So I would certainly, I know there's a $20 million estimate out there, but I was just wondering if that 40 million is an actual estimate that we have received from an engineer or someone. And if not, I will have to make a correction at the next BOMA meeting or the planning commission meeting that I may have spoken out of turn. So I don't know, do we have a document that says the improvements are 40 million?
No, sir. I'm not seeing.
Okay. And I know there's one for what, roughly 22 million that TDOT has.
Marshall worked to submit to the GNRC for their long-range plan
Okay.
for a project. And it was just a very preliminary estimate, but to widen all of Saunders Ferry to 3 lanes. And that estimate was 21 million.
And does that include replacing the 3 bridges?
It would include extension of them, I believe is what. it
Okay.
included in that.
And probably there would need to be some land reconstruction possibly, as well as shoulder repairs. And I don't know if that includes a bike lane.
It doesn't. I'm pretty sure it doesn't.
I don't think it did.
You know, because if we do it, I would like to do it properly. And so I don't know what the process is to get an engineer to do or we can go back and tweak the 22 million and include the things like, or maybe just go and review it to make sure it is adding new guardrails and shoulders and a turning lane or center lane, whatever, that that we need to make sure that the road is safe. It's the second most dangerous road, according to the police department, as far as accidents that are reported. And so I would like to make sure that the road is improved and the entire length of the road, not just the amount that's been offered from the developer, which is certainly generous, but and one of the options is to improve Mallard Point Park, which the city doesn't own. So I think that's just fruitless. I don't think we should be putting money into land that we don't own. And so, you know, I digress on that, but I would like to be able to go back to the Planning Commission or to BOMA with an exact amount that this road is going to need. And for the entire length of the road, not just for a section for a developer, because it's insulting to everyone who uses that road. And so when you start working with engineers from the Corps of Engineers and TDOT, and if we're moving utility lines, I don't know, does TVA need to be pulled into that at this point? There's a lot of parameters in this project, and I just need to have something that we can let the developers ask me for the $40 million document, which I've asked the mayor to respond, because I don't think it needs to be coming from me as an alderman. It needs to come from the city. But I would like to, since the $40 million estimate doesn't exist, I would like to at least produce the $22 million estimate that TDOT currently has. And what is the status of that $22 million project?
It was accepted
Oh.
by the GNRC, so it's not currently programmed.
Oh.
or planned.
Why was it not accepted?
It just wasn't. They prioritized a bucket of projects basically for the region. They prioritized them based on a variety of factors. I think Keith might be able to speak on that
Okay.
process a little bit more, but it just wasn't selected. So it was put kind of in a bucket of other projects to have it there, but it's not prioritized.
If I were to speculate, I would say that the connectivity to other projects and to other jurisdictions didn't help, or the lack of connectivity.
Okay,
It's
so
entirely within Hendersonville.
so there were other projects bundled together?
Yes, they submitted a variety of projects
GNRC or TDOT or who?
to GNRC.
TDOT did.
Oh, I'm sorry, the city.
The
submitted.
city
Yes.
submitted a bundle of projects.
And we do that every 3 years and then try to amend it.
Every 3 years. So
But often we can amend that. And we very quickly attempt to.
okay. And when was that submitted?
I'll have to verify that information.
So is it time, is the 3 years up? Can we resubmit or make an amendment for this one project of Saunders Ferry Road?
I'll have to get that information.
I want to say that it was submitted about a year ago. But we'll check on that, but I'm almost sure. Because I remember that Pat Campbell, who was a member of this committee, had asked for us, the city to do it, and I think it was done about a year. It was back when he was on this committee. So,
But understand, they turned down other projects that we have submitted.
Oh,
Didn't
in
we-
every city.
Didn't we
Yeah,
submit
you're
the
right.
tunnel under Saunders Ferry, Saundersville Road for that participation?
I don't think so, because GDOT required,
that's
at this point, we haven't. We probably will at some point. But at this point, I don't believe we did, because GDOT expect us to handle that. We can go to GNRC through their, what used to be the MPO, and ask them to consider that. I think that has a better shot of getting some of that money, just because the connectivity and importance it has for the region.
But their budget for the whole year is not that like, what, 10 to 20 million dollars?
Oh, GNRC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is their budget for the whole year?
So the hard part is really narrowing down what it is, because none of these projects are just year-long projects. It's hundreds of millions. So on a regular basis.
And the one that we've moving on now is straightening out Walton Ferry.
Yes.
That's the one that has been approved and we're moving on.
Yeah.
Was also the walkway, what was that called?
Greenway.
the Greenway on.
It's on the peninsula, isn't it?
Talking about Saunders Ferry?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was also approved.
Which, by the way, if you were talking about widening Saunders Ferry Road and adding a greenway, add $2 million to that 21 million. Because the greenway only going a third of the way down the peninsula is gonna cost us $1 million at least. Going the rest of the way is certainly.
I didn't even mention the Greenway. I'm right now, just at this point, would like a sidewalk. Because I think some of the Greenway is funded, but I don't know how
Just about
what the extent is, and if it ends at Mallard Point, or if the plan was to extend it all the way to Saunders Ferry Park.
Initially it was. So GNRC funds in 3 different phases. That's gonna be the engineering, the acquisition, and the construction. So we have multiple projects that are in their bucket right now, that have been approved. And a lot of them, are in different phases. Another one is Indian Lake Boulevard, just across. Yes, Indian Lake Road up to Anniebury, yes.
Making it 4 lane.
Yes.
And then we've got some other projects that
Stop 30.
are not, yes.
Dredge Creek,
Mhm.
raising up out of the floodplain.
And then we have some other projects that aren't as high priority for us right now. Rockland, are we engineering with Rockland Road?
We're working on a contract.
Okay. We haven't set money aside for the construction of that, but we don't need to yet. With GNRC, that's sort of different. We're in a different phase.
Do we have the roads listed in priority? Like we did paving,
Listed in
road
priority five.
improvements?
We do not. We have projects identified, but they're not listed by priority.
And part of the reason is that because of 3 different phases.
Okay.
We can't get any money from GNRC for construction if they haven't been involved, if we haven't completed the engineering and the acquisition. In some cases, environmental as well.
But I saw a price of $600,000, or maybe Alderman Campbell has mentioned that. What's the 600,000 for Saunders?
Marshall had put in the budget, and it was not funded, but he put in $600,000 just for spot improvements to widen Saunders Ferry and locations where it crosses the lake.
That was it. That was 600,000.
And that may,
Yeah, that wasn't funded, but I do remember that. Okay.
Lee, if you want to come sit down sometime, I can show you the spreadsheet I
Okay.
have that sort of shows in different phases that we have in all those projects.
So has there been a traffic study done on the thing that's coming before Bowman, the rezone for Saunders?
yes.
And based upon the condition of the road, it probably was not feasible until improvements are made for Saunders.
Yes, there were improvements identified, which that's part of their proposal, and then there are some additional improvements they proposed.
Alderman Peterson made a point, it's out of planning commission, so it's nothing I discovered. The traffic study was conducted. When?
In July,
What was going on in July that related to traffic?
it was the peak of COVID and no schools were in session either. So it was just a
Ghost
very
town.
practically. And the projection was 1.5% increase in traffic based on the July traffic study. And with 300 units that they had proposed, the total was 1,888 additional cars per trip, per day, on Saunders Ferry Road. It's just what the one development would increase traffic flow.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Let me
Mr.
say
Watson.
one thing.
Yes, sir.
I've really enjoyed this meeting, by the way. And you're doing a great job.
Thank
Did I understand you correctly that the developers has withdrawn the paving of the,
No, I believe that their contribution is almost 5 million, 4.8 million.
for how far?
I don't know if they were wanting to do from Main Street to 216 Saunders Ferry Road, or if that was from 216 Saunders Ferry to their other property, which is 248. But 450,000 were for improvements to Mallard Point Park, which is owned by
That's,
the Corps.
we don't own that.
No, the city leases it from the Corps.
Yeah.
So I just don't feel it necessary for them to put 450,000 into Mallard Point Park, which really does need improvements.
Okay, because this is gonna come up at the next moment. And I appreciate you changing the site, the high school. I don't know if Eddie's getting the calls I'm getting. But this is gonna be a knockdown, drag out fight, okay? Follow me. So that's the reason I'm asking that question. The original, they, in their first plan was how much? Was they gonna put them paving on Somerville Road?
The developer.
Yeah.
Was it, I have it all written down, 3.8 million, I believe. And then there was 450 for the park, so it was,
Yeah, we can
Let's
talk
let's
about it.
don't talk about the park. The 3.8, that was over, how far? A mile, 2 miles?
Yeah.
Because you came back at planning,
I came back with the $40 million estimate, but now we're looking at, it's only 22 million. And at that point, their 5 million would only pave a half a mile. Now, if we, looking at the 22 million, their donation would pave one full mile, which still leaves 2.5 miles unimproved.
Does not include Greenway.
that's not.
Tell you what we're gonna do, appreciate the deliberation, but this is getting more as a deliberation on something that's coming to the board next, well, when? The
13th,
the
the
13th,
10th.
August 10th,
And it
and,
wasn't noticed.
and we did not notice it on this issue, so I'm gonna call the meeting. Since there's no further discussion, we're gonna end it. I mean, in terms of, you all are more than welcome to stay and talk about it, but as far as deliberation, we're getting to a point where it's a little bit uncomfortable for the Public Works Committee, since it's coming up in a couple of weeks to the full board. I hope that we've answered your question on the cost of the road. That's a proper discussion. If there's no other objection, we'll go ahead and just need a motion to,
Well, I'm
or
sorry.
unless you've got
I've
something.
got a couple other items. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
that's fine, that's fine.
You know, and Sarah, we're not throwing the wolves at you, you know, that this is part of the, this is part
Part
of the job.
job.
Part of the job. So, you mentioned earlier, if we can get fully staffed. So with the HR director leaving, I would like to know how many vacant positions do we have in the Public Works Department? And are we moving to fill those positions? And if you're not comfortable, maybe the mayor can address it. I'd just like to know, because I know you're shorthanded and we're throwing a lot at you. And it's not fair to, ask so much if we don't help you out. So could you give us a report on that?
We have 3 vacant positions, the traffic engineer, the assistant city engineer, and then I'm acting as interim, so technically city engineers vacant temporarily. The director position is out, and so is the assistant city engineer position. I think we would like to hire the assistant city engineer position and begin training before we put a requisition out for the traffic engineer, just because the time it takes to train.
Well, the traffic engineer, didn't we advertise and didn't we have a candidate that we were interviewing and even made some offers?
That was
to?
the assistant city engineer.
And has that position not
It's not filled. We've re-advertised.
really, so the negotiation wasn't successful.
There was an acceptance and then they declined.
The applicant.
Yes.
Okay.
To rein even more on this, we're also struggling with the idea that should we hire somebody before we hire a director? Because we were looking at these 2 positions that were open when we had a director. Isn't it the director's responsibility to hire those folks? That shouldn't be the director's choice.
Sure.
So we're struggling with that.
Sequence.
Trace is fully staffed right now, isn't he?
He has 2 operator 1 positions that are open, that they've advertised.
They have
Yes.
Good.
We may have to look at our pay structure again for multiple positions. As you can imagine, in public works, probably more so than any other department, maybe codes. The private sector is much more lucrative than what we are.
Yeah, it is. Let me ask you this, and you may know, I know it's getting late for everybody, but when was the last time? I know y'all would know, and no disrespect to y'all, but I just don't remember the last time we looked at the pay structure here.
I think we have to do it every 4 years, is that right?
I was thinking it was 5.
I think you're right, it's every 5
I think
years.
it was 2017.
Well, it's
So
getting to
it's
that
next year
point,
that we have
yeah.
to do it. Yeah. So we're close to that point anyway. As y'all know, what happens is we do a pay study and we bump up our pay rate, and then Gallatin and Mount Juliet and other folks who pay studies, they bump up their pay rates. Then we went from being 80 percentile to 50 percentile within a couple of years. But we also have to consider the private sector, and the private sector pay has gone up dramatically in the past 2 years.
So that's a personnel issue. I have a paving question for next meeting. I would like to know, BOMA passed appropriations of $600,000 for additional paving for last fiscal year. I would like to know of that 600,000, how much did we spend? Well, Alderman Brown first passed 100,000 to do the parking lot,
That's right.
Thank you.
at the police and so forth. So I think we appropriated 600. I'd just like to have a balance.
Sure.
I know we did everything.
Mhm.
So did we come in under budget? I just like to know that the final, I like
I
also.
think it was under budget. We came in under budget.
When do we plan to begin drainage work on various major roads? For next meeting, give us a report on that. And the last thing, I'd like to congratulate you, Mayor, on the s'mores program. It was very successful. You got a lot of businesses to donate food to that, and so I just want to give you a kudos for that.
The real benefit to that is to the kids that did not see the scores drop during the summer, that they either maintained or they increased. And in 4 years, we've never had a kid see their scores decrease. Other kids that are not in the program, their reading skills are decreasing.
Do they say why? I mean, I know.
They're not in school for the summer.
Yeah.
If I could add one thing, Sarah, you're doing a great job.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Amen.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Just get that lot civilization.
All right.
Just.
I need a motion.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion to adjourn at 6:55. Yes, 6:55.